So hey, um, I'm doing this video today because a conversation erupted on my wall about poverty, about capitalism, and communism. It was a bit of a exaggerated meme about liberalism and poverty, and saying that basically liberals want to pursue civil rights for women and African Americans, but poor people, well, we kind of think they always have to exist. So it was basically, the argument was about the abolition of poverty. And it made me think that I wanted to do a sort of general video about my stance on communism. So I'm entitling this with what I consider my catchphrase: Jesus made me a communist, which I sometimes add, not a Christian. What does that mean? Yeah, okay. Well, I wasn't born a communist. I was born into a Pentecostal family. My father was a preacher, my grandfather was a preacher, and my great-grandfather was a Pentecostal elder. So I was in the fourth generation of very passionate, emotional people dedicated to their religion. And as far as I knew, growing up, I was going to follow in their footsteps. But at a certain point in my life, I began to realize that I wasn't entirely following the right path, because there were sort of two ways that I was told that I could follow in life. I could either follow the one true Pentecostal way, the old time religion. It goes all the way back to God himself. Or I could be a backslidden, rebellious preacher's kid, not following that way. But I decided that I was going to do something a little different. I was going to turn my rebellion into a religion. And so when I say Jesus made me a communist, not a Christian, I'm trying to make that statement that, to me, the teachings of Jesus about poverty and wealth led for me very naturally to embracing communism. And I want to be clear how I understand what communism is. If you know anything about the teachings of Jesus, you know that he taught a way of love, a path of love, and he taught about what I would say were 5 kinds of love. Now, the first kind of love is just love your neighbor, right? Love the people around you, and he was clear that this even included people of different religion than you. He told the parable of the Good Samaritan to explain what a neighbor really was. A Samaritan was considered a heretical Jew by most of the Jews of Jesus' time, and so by telling that story in response to who's my neighbor, he was saying even people who don't believe the way you do are your neighbors. He also said, though, love your neighbor as yourself. And this is a hard thing for people to quite understand, is that there is an important element of your loving yourself. If you hate yourself, you can't love other people. I found that to be true in my experience, and I want to emphasize that. And then Jesus said, this is the next important theme that I find in every line of the Gospels: love the poor. And I want to even read a passage here. And this is from the Gospel of Matthew. It's a chapter 25 and verse 31. And I'm reading from the Cotton Patch translation, which was written by an actual, more or less, a communist. In verse 31, when the Son of Man starts his revolution with all his band around him, he will take power, and the nations will be assembled before him, and he'll sort them out like a farmer separating sheep from the goats. putting the sheep on the right and the goats on the left. Now, for myself, I usually like to switch it around so that the sheep are on the left, but anyway. And then the leader of this revolution will say to those, come to me and share in this revolution that has been established for you since time began. For I was hungry and you shared your food with me. I was thirsty and you shared your water with me. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Ragged and you clothed me. Sick and you nursed me. I was in jail and you stood by me. And then these people of justice will say, Jesus, when did we see you hungry and share our food, or thirsty and share our water? When did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or ragged and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in jail and stand by you? And then the leader of the revolution will reply, when you did it to one of these humblest siblings of mine, you did it to me. And he will say to those goats on the other side, get away from me, you skunks. This is the Cotton Patch translation. And into the burning pit reserved for the slanderer and his crowd. For when I was hungry, you shared nothing with me. I was thirsty, you didn't give me any water. I was a stranger, you didn't welcome me. Ragged, you didn't clothe me. Sick and in jail, and you didn't stand with me. Well, these people also ask, well, when did we see you hungry, thirsty, a stranger, or ragged, or sick in jail, and do nothing for you? And he said, when you failed one of the humblest people here with me, you have also failed me. And those will take a punishment, and the just ones will have the joy of eternal life. When I was in my 20s, I read that passage for the first time with new eyes. I had been taught that Jesus was going to send people to hell because they committed a sexual sin. They smoked cigarettes. Really, I was taught that smoking cigarettes was a sin deserving of hell. And so I tried very careful to not do any sin. But I didn't notice until I read that passage again that Jesus says nothing about sexual sin or smoking cigarettes or any of the common things that Christians say are sins. He talked about one thing: compassion, caring for the poor. And when I heard that message for the first time, coming through loud and clear, it hit me in the gut. I had been living on a 21st century rigid morality and substituting it for a morality that I thought Jesus had taught, but Jesus taught a very different morality. And after Jesus was crucified, and after he began to appear to his disciples in what I believe was his spiritual resurrection — it wasn't a physical resurrection, it was a spiritual one — they saw him and they began to tell others about it. And one of the first things they did was they created a commune. I'm going to read another passage here about that. This is from the book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 32. A single heart and soul was in the body of believers. Not one of them considered his property to be private, but all things were shared among them. With mighty power, their leaders gave testimony of how Jesus was still alive, and upon them all was a spirit of abounding goodwill. There wasn't a single person in their group in need, for owners of houses or land would sell it and bring the proceeds and place them at the disposal of their leaders. And then distribution was made to everyone on the basis of need. One of my favorite memes on the internet quotes that passage and says, I'm not sure if that's Jesus Christ or Karl Marx. What's the difference, right? So, I don't have anything against Marxists. or anarchists or atheists. I am a universalist. That's why I say I'm not a Christian. I am a communist and a universalist. Universalists say, if you're an atheist and you tell me the truth, I believe you. If you're a Buddhist and you tell me the truth, I'll believe you. You're a Christian? I'll believe you if you tell me the truth. Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, pagan, don't discriminate against people on the basis of what they say their religion is. We judge based on the truth. I remember when I went to summer camp when I was probably about 11 or 12 years old. And a group of us kids were talking to some college kids who were trying to recruit us for a touring choir. Yeah, I was into music. I was a choir boy at one point. And we were talking to this college kids about, we just asked them anything. Well, somebody in this group of kids about my age, 11, 12 years old, maybe this was 13, although I think it was younger than that. Somebody in my group said, what do you think about communism? Now, this was in the 70s. We were still afraid of nuclear war. Vietnam may have still been going on at this point. Vietnam ended in 75 when I was 12, so the Vietnam War may have been over. But this kid, I think it was a girl actually, asked one of the people in these college kids, what do you think about communism? And one of the college kids said, communism is a beautiful idea, but human beings are too sinful for communism to ever work. Remember how I said I wanted to use my religion as a rebellion? In that moment, the thought in my head, and I didn't say this out loud, but in the thought in my head is, who cares if human beings are sinful? Communism is a beautiful idea. God is all powerful. Human sinfulness shouldn't matter. A beautiful idea like communism should be made real. That was just the seed. By the time I was 30, I was identifying as an anarcho-communist. By the mid-90s, I was identifying as a socialist, and then more recently I've come out and just said, you know what, I'm a communist. Always kind of have been. My ministry, my calling is to transform the world, and the one place I think I have any expertise in transforming the world is in the world of religion. I know some economics, not enough. I know some politics and history, but when it comes to what I really know, it's religion. And so what I want to do is inspire a religious left, a religious communist movement in the world. And I have to start with the Christians because they're the ones I know the best. But again, as I said, as a universalist, I don't judge your religion. If you're an atheist, you're a Buddhist, whatever, it's great. But you should be a communist too. And that's my whole vision. So this video will probably become, or some version of this video will end up on YouTube on this new channel that I have created, which we're going to be launching hopefully in a few weeks with content related to religious communism. We're going to talk about the Bible. We're going to talk about Marxism. We're going to talk a little bit about anarchism. We'll talk about it all. But the reason I'm doing this is because I believe in love. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, love the poor. He also said, love God. God is the source of love. You may not believe in God, and I'll have to be honest, I don't always believe in God. But I do believe that love is real, and I believe that love has a source. And so for me, the only definition of God I can give you is God is the source of love. And so I love the source of love, that love that is greater than my love, because my love ain't enough. Your love ain't enough, but if we all work together, maybe that'll be enough love. And the last one is love your enemies, and that means, in this case, the capitalists. What? You have to love the capitalists? I'll tell you a little story here. Suppose I had two sons who hated each other. My brother and I, we hated each other. I'm not proud of that. I was the older brother and I picked on my little brother mercilessly. And to this day, I don't think he's forgiven me. And I kind of have to own that I was a pretty shitty older brother. But we went out, but just imagine these two boys. I had two boys. One of them went out into the world and became a millionaire like, I don't know, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. And the other one became a poor college dropout, kind of like me. Now, I'm going to love both of them. They're my flesh. But I have to spend a little more of my energy on the one who's poor because he needs help. The guy who's rich, he needs help too. He needs to have his wealth taken away from him for his own good, as well as for the good of humanity. So when Jesus says, love your enemy, I don't think he's necessarily a pacifist. I do think he's saying, when we conduct the revolution, it has to be a just revolution that is motivated by love. All right, I've said a lot of things here. And again, this will be going up on YouTube at some point. I hope you enjoyed this. And we will be launching in the near future, not only the YouTube channel, but a public meeting. The People's Communist Bible Study will be resuming public meetings in the near future. So keep your eyes peeled to my Facebook page. I love you all. Ask questions, reach out to me, and I'll talk to you again soon.